The gymnasium doors sealed with a hiss that made every student freeze. Protocol dictated silence during royal observation days, but Kira hadn't expected the Empress herself to attend third cycle physical conditioning. The crystalline ceiling panels dimmed to observation mode, and there she was, Empress Velshara of the Athari Empire, flanked by 6 royal guards whose bio-armor gleamed like liquid mercury under the filtered light. Kira's dorsal fins flattened against her scaled back. She'd transferred to Celestial Academy only 2 rotations ago, the first Aquarian granted admission in 3 generations. Now the most powerful being in 7 star systems watched her fumble with the graviton harness that every other species wore without thinking. The human stood 3 platforms away. Kira had heard the rumors. Every student had. A Deathworlder enrolled under diplomatic protection, something about cultural exchange and treaty obligations. The creature called itself Marcus, and it moved through the halls with an ease that made Kira's survival instincts scream. Deathworlders came from planets where everything tried to kill everything else. Their home gravity crushed bones. Their atmosphere burned lungs. Their predators hunted in packs. Marcus didn't wear a graviton harness. "Begin locomotion assessment," Instructor Thalvin announced, his 4 eyes deliberately avoiding the observation platform. "Standard velocity. Ascending difficulty." The track materialized beneath their feet, a shimmering pathway that curved upward into artificial zero-gravity zones. Kira activated her harness and felt the familiar tug as it compensated for her aquatic physiology. Around her, other students did the same, luminary adjusting for their hollow bones, Corthan heavy worlders dialing down resistance, silicate collective minds syncing their components. Marcus stretched. The movement looked casual, but Kira's predator recognition neurons fired warning signals through her entire nervous system. The human bent forward, touched its toes, rolled its shoulders. No technology, no biomods, just muscle and bone, moving with fluid precision that suggested coiled power. "Proceed," Thalvin said, and his voice carried an edge Kira had never heard before. The first students launched onto the track. Kira pushed off third, her harness carrying her smoothly upward. Behind her, she heard nothing. Then a footfall. Another. Rhythmic. Heavy. Growing faster. She glanced back. Marcus ran like physics didn't apply. The human's feet struck the track with impacts that sent vibrations through the entire structure. No harness meant full Deathworld gravity, yet it accelerated past Luminari students whose hollow frames made them naturally swift. Its breathing remained steady. Deep, controlled cycles that Kira recognized from predator species documentation. Each stride covered distance that should have required enhanced musculature or technological assistance. A Corthan student stumbled, graviton harness sputtering. Marcus adjusted mid-stride, one hand shooting out to steady the massive student without breaking pace. The casual strength required made Kira's fins extend involuntarily. Above them, the Empress leaned forward. Kira pushed harder, her harness whining as she demanded more output. The track curved into a vertical climb. Around her, students engaged magnetic grips or anti-grav boosts. Standard procedure. Safe procedure. Marcus jumped. The human launched itself upward with pure leg strength, fingers catching the ledge 3 body lengths above. It pulled, muscles visible beneath the thin academy uniform, and swung onto the vertical section. Then it continued running, somehow finding grip on the 90-degree surface. "Impossible," someone whispered through the comm band. The angle coefficient, Marcus reached the zero-gravity zone and didn't slow down. It pushed off the final platform and rotated in midair, limbs spreading like some kind of atmospheric predator. When it caught the far wall, the impact echoed through the gymnasium like a weapon discharge. The Emperor stood. Royal guards shifted positions, hands drifting towards ceremonial weapons that Kira suddenly suspected weren't ceremonial at all. The silence stretched, broken only by Marcus's breathing as it hung there, apparently unaware that it had just demonstrated capabilities that violated 3 different safety protocols. "Continue," the Empress said. Her voice carried no anger, no surprise, just absolute authority and something else. Something that made Kira's species memory recognize ancient danger. Thalvin's communication implant glowed. He received whatever message the Empress sent, and his primary eyes widened fractionally. Revised assessment. Combat maneuvers. Partner formations. Combat maneuvers weren't scheduled until 5th cycle. Kira's fins rippled with confusion until she understood. The Empress wanted to see what the Deathworlder could actually do. Students scrambled into pairs. Kira found herself beside a silicate collective named Fragment of Dawn, Across the gymnasium, Marcus stood alone. No partner assignment, no equipment distribution. The human smiled, and Kira felt her flight response trigger so hard she nearly abandoned her harness entirely. Defense Protocol 7, Thalvin announced. Objective, maintain position against aggressor simulation. Standard difficulty. The track reconfigured into platforms separated by gaps. Defense drones emerged from wall panels, their targeting systems painting students with harmless marker beams. Get tagged, lose points. Simple assessment. The drones activated. Kira dodged left, her harness giving her the speed to avoid the first beam. Fragment of dawn scattered into component pieces, each segment taking a different vector. Around the gymnasium, students employed species-specific advantages, Luminary phasing through attacks, Corthan simply tanking hits with their dense hides. Marcus moved like water. The human didn't dodge. It flowed. Each drone attack missed by margins so small that Kira's mathematical processing couldn't track the precision.
No harness compensation.
No technological prediction algorithms. Just reaction speed that belonged to something evolved to survive constant threat. A drone adjusted its pattern trying to box Marcus in. The human dropped flat, rolled, came up running. It reached a platform edge and jumped without hesitation, trusting its own momentum calculation more than any computer could. The Empress descended 3 steps from the observation platform. Guards moved with her, their formation tightening. Kira had studied royal protocol in her orientation materials. The Empress never left the observation platform during assessments. Never. The act itself constituted a breach of tradition that made every instructor in the room tense. Marcus landed, stumbled slightly, recovered. The small imperfections somehow made what came next more terrifying. The human noticed the Empress. Everything stopped, not by order, but because every species' survival instinct in the room recognized a moment of critical importance. Marcus straightened slowly, then performed what Kira's cultural database identified as a human bow. Respectful, appropriate, completely inadequate for acknowledging the ruler of 7 star systems. The Empress tilted her head, and her crown jewels caught the light in patterns that Kira's ancestors would have called a predator's warning display. Then the child appeared. Kira never learned how the royal daughter had bypassed security, only that she was suddenly there, a small figure darting past the guards with the fearlessness of someone too young to understand danger. She ran straight toward the gymnasium floor, straight toward the active defense drones, straight toward the edge where a 4-story drop waited. The guards moved. Fast. Professionally. Not fast enough. Marcus was already running. The human covered the distance in strides that looked like they'd tear muscle from bone. It hit the platform edge at full speed, didn't slow, just extended both arms as it left solid ground. Kira watched gravity claim the Deathworlder, watched it fall in a controlled arc that suggested precise calculation or suicidal instinct. Marcus caught the child midair. They fell together, the human rotating its body to take the impact. It hit the safety netting 3 stories down, rolled with the momentum, and came up with the royal daughter cradled against its chest, unharmed, protected by nothing but flesh and reflexes. The silence that followed felt like the moment before stars collapse. The Empress was moving before the guards could clear a path, descending stairs with a speed that shattered every protocol Kira had ever studied. She crossed the gymnasium floor while Marcus stood perfectly still, the child peering up at her with wide, curious eyes. "Put her down," the Empress said quietly, and the entire academy probably heard it. Marcus knelt slowly and set the girl on her feet. It kept one hand available, ready to catch if she stumbled. The protective instinct was so obvious it made Kira's chest ache. The Empress reached them and stopped. She looked at Marcus for a long moment, then at her daughter, then back at the human who'd just violated approximately 17 different protocols to save a child it had never met. "What is your name?" the Empress asked. "Marcus Chen, Empress."
Bird cycle student.
"Birth, diplomatic contingent." The human's voice was steady despite having just fallen 3 stories. Its breathing had already normalized. Deathworld physiology, recovering from what should have been catastrophic impact. The Empress lifted her daughter into her arms, and Kira watched the most powerful woman in known space hold her child with the same fierce protection Marcus had shown. "You will attend me after this session," the Empress said. "We will discuss your capabilities." But it also wasn't an execution order, which several students had quietly been expecting. The guards formed up around the Empress as she carried her daughter toward the exit, their bioarmor no longer just decorative but fully primed for threat response. As they passed the smallest guard, barely visible in the formation, turned her helmet toward Marcus. Kira caught the momentary pause, the slight nod. Recognition between warriors, maybe. Or respect between those who understood protection. The gymnasium doors sealed behind the royal party with the same hiss they'd made opening. But everything had changed. Students stared at Marcus with expressions ranging from terror to awe. Thalvin looked like he'd aged 3 cycles in as many minutes. Marcus walked back to its starting position, apparently unconcerned that it had just caught the personal attention of an empress, demonstrated impossible physical capabilities, and survived what should have been a bone-shattering impact. Kira's fins were still extended in full threat response. Her harness kept beeping error codes because her cardiac rhythm had exceeded safe parameters. Around her, other students were having similar physiological reactions. The human just stretched again, rolling those dangerous shoulders like nothing significant had happened. "Resume assessment," Thalvin said weakly. Nobody moved. The drones hung in position, their targeting systems confused by the sudden stillness. The track's graviton fields hummed with unused energy. Then Marcus started running again, and Kira realized with creeping certainty that everything she'd witnessed was normal for this creature. The impossible jumps, the precision reactions, the willingness to fall through space to catch someone smaller. This was just what Deathworlders did, and the Empress had invited it to a private audience. Kira thought about every political alliance built over the last century, every careful negotiation between species, every treaty signed in the name of peaceful coexistence. They all assumed relative parity, similar capabilities, comparable strengths and weaknesses. What happened when one species could do things that violated the basic assumptions of everyone else? Kira watched Marcus clear a gap that required most students to use emergency thrusters. The human just jumped, trusted its muscles, made it look easy. The gymnasium doors remained sealed. Outside, the royal party was undoubtedly having conversations that would reshape political dynamics. Inside, students were slowly coming to the same realization Kira had already reached. Everything was about to change. Because a Deathworlder had joined gym class, and the Empress had seen what it could do. The summons came 6 hours later, delivered by a royal messenger whose formal robes couldn't hide the military precision in every movement. Marcus received the crystalline tablet and read the flowing script that somehow translated perfectly into his native language. Attendance required at sunset. Imperial Gardens, Eastern Pavilion. Come alone. No diplomatic escort, no Earth ambassador, just Marcus and whatever waited in a place designed for the Empress's private meditation. He walked through halls that grew progressively emptier as other students found urgent business elsewhere. Word had spread. The human who'd demonstrated impossible capabilities. The Deathworlder who'd caught a falling princess. The alien who'd survived a 3-story drop like it was an inconvenient step. Marcus wondered what they'd think if they knew the truth. That the fall had hurt like hell and he'd be feeling it for days. That his shoulders were already stiffening from the impact. That he'd gotten lucky with the angle and the netting and about 17 other factors. Deathworlder reputation helped more than Deathworlder reality sometimes. The Imperial Gardens materialized through arched doorways that responded to his academy credentials. Natural sunlight, actual starlight filtered through atmospheric regulators, painted the landscape in colors that made Marcus's eyes water slightly. The Eastern Pavilion stood alone beside a pond filled with something that might have been water if water naturally luminescent. The Empress waited without her guards. That detail made Marcus's combat training scream warnings. Leaders didn't meet foreign nationals alone. Not in his experience. Not in any political framework he understood. Yet there she was, seated on a bench carved from single crystal, looking out over gardens that probably represented more wealth than entire Earth cities. "Approach, Marcus Chen?" she said without turning. He walked forward slowly, each step deliberate. His body still ached from the earlier impact. His shoulders sent sharp protests with every movement. Normal human limitations catching up with adrenaline-fueled heroics. The Empress said. It wasn't a question. "I'll recover, Empress. My healers would find human physiology complicated. Better to let it heal naturally." She turned then, and Marcus saw the crown jewels up close. They weren't decorative. Each stone pulsed with energy signatures he couldn't identify, connected by circuits too small to see. Technology or biology or something his species hadn't developed words for yet. "You caught my daughter mid-fall," the Empress said. "Your trajectory calculations were precise. Your impact absorption was impressive. Your willingness to risk yourself was unexpected. She was in danger. So were you. The fall could have killed you. Maybe. Probably not. Humans are pretty durable." The Empress's expression shifted slightly. Marcus had studied Eothari facial mechanics in his cultural preparation courses. That particular muscle combination indicated either amusement or concern, possibly both. How durable, she asked. Compared to what? To species who evolved on worlds where gravity didn't crush, atmosphere didn't burn, and predators didn't hunt in organized packs. Earth had joined the galactic community only 40 years ago. Diplomatic relations remained fragile. His scholarship to Celestial Academy was part of ongoing cultural exchange programs designed to prove humans could integrate peacefully. Demonstrating that humans were potentially dangerous probably wasn't the diplomatic message Earth intended. We adapt, Marcus said finally. Our world taught us flexibility. Your world taught you survival skills that border on supernatural by our standards. The Empress stood, and even that simple motion carried authority that made Marcus want to either bow or step back. Do you know what I saw in the gymnasium? A student who reacted to an emergency? I saw a creature that moves with predatory grace, calculates trajectories instinctively, and treats gravitational force as a suggestion rather than law. I saw capabilities that my military analysts would classify as enhanced soldier level, without augmentation. Without technology, just biology. Just evolution, Empress. Evolution that produced apex predators smart enough to build starships. She stopped an arm's length away. Do you understand why that might concern me? He'd read the historical databases, knew about the Corthon expansion wars, the Silicate unification conflicts, the Luminary Purge. Every major war in galactic history started when one species realized they had decisive advantages over others. Humans had advantages nobody had anticipated. We're not here to conquer, Marcus said quietly. We're here to learn. When enough humans attend our academies, study our technologies, understand our weaknesses, the same thing that happens with every other species, we go home. We contribute to galactic civilization. We trade and share and coexist.
You make it sound simple.
It is simple. We just want to belong. The Empress studied him with eyes that had probably witnessed centuries of political maneuvering. Marcus had no idea how old she was. Eothari lifespans extended far beyond human comprehension. She might have been alive when Earth was still convinced it was alone in the universe. My daughter likes you, she said finally. The subject change caught Marcus off guard. She seems energetic. She snuck past 6 royal guards and 3 security checkpoints to watch gymnasium activities. A faint smile touched the Empress's features. She's been asking about the flying human since I brought her back to the residential wing. I fell with style. The smile widened fractionally. Earth humor? Ancient Earth reference. Before spaceflight. Before you knew you weren't alone. Before we knew we weren't the scariest thing in the galaxy. The Empress's smile disappeared. Is that what you think? That humans are the scariest species? I think we're the newest species that makes everyone nervous, Marcus said. I think we evolved differently and it shows. I think we're trying really hard not to screw up our first generation of galactic integration. By catching falling princesses? By doing what's right when it matters? Silence settled between them. The luminescent pond rippled with movements from creatures Marcus couldn't identify. Somewhere in the gardens, something sang with a voice that sounded like crystal chimes. You will tutor my daughter, the Empress said abruptly. Marcus blinked. Excuse me? She needs instruction from someone who understands movement and danger, someone who won't let her hurt herself while she explores her own capabilities. Empress, I'm not qualified to... You caught her mid-fall. You're qualified. The Empress's tone carried finality that ended arguments before they started. Twice weekly, 1-hour sessions. Standard academy compensation plus diplomatic allowances. The other students will learn that competence matters more than origin. She turned back toward the pond. My guards will escort you to the scheduling office. They'll ensure you have appropriate clearances. Marcus realized he was being dismissed. Also that he'd just been drafted into something that would probably complicate his life in ways he couldn't predict. One question, Empress? She glanced back. Ask. Why me? You have entire academies full of qualified instructors. Because my daughter nearly died today, and you didn't hesitate. Because you moved when my guards were still processing threat assessments. Because you're the only person in that gymnasium who saw a child in danger instead of a political complication. The words hit harder than the earlier fall. Marcus had just reacted. Seen someone small falling and known he could reach them. The identity hadn't mattered. The politics hadn't registered. Just a kid who needed help. I'll do my best, Marcus said. I know. That's why I chose you. The Empress returned her attention to the pond. Dismissed, Marcus Chen. We'll speak again soon. The guards appeared silently, emerging from garden shadows like they'd been there the whole time. Probably had been. Marcus followed them back through the arched doorways, leaving the Empress alone with her luminescent pond and whatever thoughts occupied the mind of someone who ruled 7 star systems. The scheduling office processed his new assignment with efficiency that suggested they'd been expecting it. Clearances updated. Access permissions granted. Compensation packages calculated and transmitted to his student account. You're very fortunate, the scheduling coordinator said. Her species name escaped Marcus, but she had 6 arms and used all of them simultaneously to manipulate holographic interfaces. Royal tutoring positions are highly prestigious. I'm terrified, Marcus admitted. Good. Tara suggests appropriate respect for the responsibility. She finalized something with a gesture that involved 3 arms. First session is tomorrow. 3rd hour after dawn. Imperial Residential Wing, Eastern Training Facility. Don't be late. Marcus promised he wouldn't and stumbled back to his dormitory in a daze. The other students gave him wide berth in the corridors. Some stared. Some whispered. A few looked impressed. Most looked nervous. He understood. He'd gone from anonymous transfer student to someone with regular access to the royal family in the span of 1 gymnasium session. His roommate, a luminari named Drift Through Starlight, was waiting when Marcus entered their shared quarters. You're alive, Drift said. His translucent form flickered with colors that Marcus had learned to read as surprise and relief. Barely, some say you'll be executed for touching royalty. Others claim you'll be elevated to guard status. The betting pools are getting complicated. Marcus collapsed onto a sleeping platform, which adjusted automatically to human proportions. His shoulders screamed protest. His back sent sharp reminders of recent trauma. Tomorrow he'd have bruises in exciting new places. I'm just supposed to teach her physical conditioning, Marcus said. The royal daughter? The child who... Her... Drift flickered through several color combinations that might have represented mental processing. Marcus, do you understand what you've been asked to do? Teach a kid how to exercise safely? Teach the heir to the Aethari Empire? The future ruler of 7 star systems? The single most politically significant child in known space? Drift's colors settled on deep blue with gold accents, and you're going to teach her to move like a Deathworlder. He'd just considered the practical aspects. Make sure she didn't hurt herself. Teach proper warm-up protocols. Help her build strength safely. Now he considered the implications. The future Empress, trained in human movement techniques. Learning to think like someone from a world where everything was dangerous. Developing instincts shaped by Deathworld survival strategies. Oh, Marcus said quietly. Yes. Oh. Drift settled into his own rest configuration. You've either just secured humanity's position in the Empire forever, or you've created a political situation that will take decades to resolve. I just caught a falling kid. You caught the most important falling kid in 7 star systems. Nothing is ever just anything anymore. Marcus stared at the ceiling, which displayed a rotating view of star fields that never quite matched Earth's night sky. His shoulders hurt, his back ached. Tomorrow he'd have to stand in front of a princess and somehow teach her things without getting himself executed or starting an interstellar incident. Just another day as humanity's representative to the galactic community. He started laughing, and once he started, he couldn't stop. Drift's colors cycled through confusion, concern, and finally something that might have been sympathetic amusement. Humans, Drift said. Like it explained everything. Maybe it did. The Eastern Training Facility made the gymnasium look like a storage closet. Marcus stood in the entrance, gaping at a space that could have housed several Earth stadiums. Holographic environments flickered through different terrain. Mountains, forests, what looked like underwater caves. Training equipment he couldn't identify lined walls that curved upward into artificial sky. And in the center, wearing a simple academy exercise uniform, the royal daughter waited. 6 guards formed a perimeter at respectful distance, close enough to intervene, far enough to avoid interfering. Their bioarmor was active, Marcus noticed. Full combat readiness disguised as ceremonial protection. The girl smiled when she saw him. You're the flying human. And I didn't fly. I fell. But you caught me while falling. That's practically flying. Marcus approached slowly, aware that 6 highly trained warriors were tracking his every movement. What's your name? Lyra May Velsara, 3rd of her line, heir designate to the Aethari throne, daughter of... Can I call you Lyra? She blinked. Nobody calls me Lyra. Do you want them to? But they don't. The smile widened. Mother said you were different. Your mother is terrifying, and I'm very afraid of disappointing her. Lyra laughed, and the sound echoed through the massive facility. Everyone is afraid of Mother, even the guards. Marcus glanced at the perimeter warriors. Their bioarmor didn't reveal expressions, but somehow he sensed agreement. So Marcus said, Your mom, the Empress, wants me to help you with physical conditioning. Have you done any training before? Ceremonial movement patterns, meditation techniques. Anything that made you sweat? Everyone sweats, it's biology. Lyra looked genuinely surprised. Mother sweats? When she exercises. If she exercises. I've never seen her exercise. She's always just perfect. Marcus recognized the tone. He'd heard it in his own voice talking about his parents before he realized they were just people who happened to raise him. Okay, Marcus said. New rule. In this facility, we're not royalty and Deathworlder. We're just Lyra and Marcus. We work hard, we get sweaty, and we learn things. Deal? Lyra considered. The guards won't like that. The guards will adapt. Deal? She extended her hand in a gesture that Marcus recognized from cultural briefings. Not quite a handshake, more like a trust exchange. He matched the motion, and their hands met in the formal position. Deal, Lyra said. Over the next hour, Marcus learned several important things. First, Lyra had absolutely no concept of physical limitations. She attempted exercises that would injure her and seemed surprised when Marcus intervened. Second, her enthusiasm vastly exceeded her actual capabilities. Not her fault. She'd spent her life being protected from anything that might strain her. Third, she was absolutely brilliant. Once Marcus explained the reasoning behind warm-up exercises, she absorbed the information instantly and started asking questions that demonstrated genuine understanding. Why do muscles need preparation? She asked while attempting jumping jacks. Because they're like engines. Cold engines break when you push them too hard too fast, but your muscles worked immediately when you caught me. My muscles had already been warmed up in gym class, and honestly, they hurt a lot afterward. I can see you favoring your left shoulder. Marcus blinked. How did you... It's required for royal duties. You rotate differently now than you did when you entered. Smart kid. Dangerous combination with curiosity and access to unlimited resources. They worked through basic movements. Lyra struggled with things human children mastered easily. Her species hadn't evolved for the kind of dynamic motion Marcus considered normal, but she tried. Failed. Tried again. This is hard, she said after the 8th attempt at a proper squat. Everything worth doing is hard at first. Even for humans? We just got stubborn about it. Is that a Deathworld trait? Maybe. Our world didn't give us much choice. Get tough or get dead, and you chose tough. I just inherited the results. Lyra managed a proper squat finally, and her triumphant expression made the whole session worthwhile. The guards shifted position slightly. Marcus suspected they were impressed despite themselves. Can you teach me to fall like you did? Lyra asked suddenly. Absolutely not. Why? You survived. I survived because I got lucky and I've been falling off things since I could walk. You need to learn basics first. How long until I can learn falling? Years, probably. I don't have years. I have duties and protocols and approximately 6,000 obligations before I reach majority age. The frustration in her voice sounded painfully familiar. Marcus remembered being 14 and convinced the universe demanded too much too fast. Then we make the time we have count, Marcus said. Proper technique beats rush training every time. Lyra's flexibility exceeded human norms by considerable margins. Marcus made notes about incorporating that advantage into future training. Same time in 2 days? Marcus asked. Required by royal decree, Lyra said formally. Then she grinned. Also, I want to. Marcus stood alone in the massive facility, suddenly aware that he'd just spent an hour teaching the future Empress to do jumping jacks. His communicator chimed. Text from Drift. Still alive? Marcus replied. Barely. She's terrifying in completely different ways than her mother. Should I prepare your memorial service? Make sure they mention I died doing something stupid. That's a given. Marcus headed back to the main academy campus. Students still avoided him in the corridors, but now some looked curious instead of just nervous. Word had spread about the royal tutoring assignment. Political calculations were probably happening in every dormitory. He didn't care. He'd spent an hour with a kid who wanted to learn and tried hard despite every advantage, telling her she didn't need to. That felt like something worth the risk. 3 weeks passed. Marcus settled into a routine that would have seemed impossible a month earlier. Regular classes, gymnasium sessions where students slowly stopped freezing when he moved. Twice weekly tutorials with Lyra that consistently exceeded their scheduled hour because she asked too many good questions. The Empress attended the 4th session unannounced. Marcus was demonstrating proper landing technique from a 1-meter platform when he sensed her presence. Lyra landed, rolled, came up smoothly, still imperfect but dramatically improved, and spotted her mother watching from the observation platform. She froze mid-celebration. "Continue," the Empress said quietly. Marcus glanced at Lyra. "Ready for the next one?" The girl nodded hesitantly. They'd been building toward 2-meter drops. Lyra's physiology meant she processed impact differently than humans, but the principles remained constant. Bend knees. Distribute force. Roll with momentum. She climbed the platform. Marcus positioned himself to catch if needed. Lyra jumped. Her technique. Bent knees. Controlled landing. Forward roll that shed excess energy. She came up grinning and immediately looked to the observation platform for approval. The Empress descended to the training floor. The guards materialized from wherever guards materialized from. Marcus maintained position, aware that he was suddenly in the presence of the most powerful person in 7 star systems with no protocol buffer. "Report," the Empress said to him. "Lyra's progressing well. Strength-building foundations are solid. Flexibility advantages are being incorporated. Confidence is improving. Spatial awareness has increased significantly." "Demonstrate." Marcus looked at Lyra. She nodded. They developed simple patterns over the weeks, movements that combined into flowing sequences. Nothing fancy. Just the basics executed well. They moved together. Lyra matched his pace, adjusted to his cues. When Marcus changed direction, she flowed with it. When he added complexity, she adapted. Not perfect. Still learning, but competent. The Empress watched without expression. Marcus couldn't read her reaction. Couldn't tell if he'd just demonstrated excellence or committed catastrophic error. Lyra was breathing hard but smiling. Marcus kept his expression neutral and waited. "You've taught her to move like a Deathworlder," the Empress said finally. "I've taught her to move intelligently. The techniques happen to be human, but the principles apply universally. Can other species truly learn to think like predators from Deathworlds? Respectfully, Empress, I think that's the wrong question." Silence. The guards tensed. Marcus had just contradicted the ruler of 7 star systems to her face. "Explain," the Empress said, and her voice carried frost. "Lyra isn't learning to think like a predator. She's learning to think strategically about movement, to understand her own capabilities and limitations. To build confidence through competence rather than privilege." Marcus met the Empress's eyes. "She's learning to solve physical problems the same way she'll eventually solve political ones. Through analysis, preparation, and careful execution." Marcus wondered if he'd just ended his tutoring career, possibly his academic career. Maybe his life. "Interesting perspective," the Empress said. "Continue your instruction. I want monthly progress reports." She turned and walked away. The guards followed. Lyra exhaled loudly. "I thought she was going to execute you," Lyra whispered. "So did I. But you said it anyway. Because it was true. Truth doesn't always matter to power." Marcus looked at her. "Where did you learn that?" "Politics and philosophy. Required curriculum." Lyra's expression turned thoughtful. "But you don't believe it, do you?" "I believe truth matters more than power thinks it does." "That's very human. Or maybe it's universal and humans just forgot to hide it." Lyra seemed distracted, processing something Marcus couldn't identify. She left without her usual enthusiastic goodbye, flanked by guards who moved with extra precision. Marcus returned to find his dormitory had been upgraded. Private quarters. Enhanced security. Access to facilities previously restricted to advanced students. A message on his communication terminal from the Empress's administrative office thanked him for his service and noted the accommodations reflected his elevated status. Drift appeared in the doorway. "You've been promoted to the diplomatic wing? Apparently I insulted the Empress correctly." "Humans," Drift said. "You're all insane." Marcus looked around. The new quarters. 3 times the size of his previous shared room, equipped with technology he barely recognized. Reward for telling the truth when he could have deflected. His communicator chimed. Message from Lyra, sent through official channels. Mother said you were correct. She wants to meet for formal consultation. 3rd day from now. Evening mealtime. Royal Residential Wing. Marcus stared at the message. Evening meal meant private audience. Royal Residential Wing meant personal space. This wasn't a public acknowledgement. This was something else entirely. He responded, "I'll be there." Then he sat down and tried to process the fact that he'd somehow gone from anonymous transfer student to regular dinner guest of the most powerful family in known space. All because he'd caught a falling kid and refused to lie about his teaching methods. The next 3 days passed in a blur of speculation and anxiety. Other students treated him differently now, some with respect, some with envy, all with caution. Marcus had crossed some invisible line into territory where normal social rules stopped applying. The evening came. Guards escorted him through sections of the academy he'd never seen, private corridors, security checkpoints, living spaces that made his upgraded quarters look primitive. The Empress waited in a garden room where living plants, actual biological organisms, not holographic simulations, grew in patterns that suggested careful cultivation. Lyra sat beside her mother, wearing formal robes that made her look older. Marcus Chen, the Empress, greeted him. "Please sit." The furniture adjusted automatically to human proportions. "My daughter tells me you believe truth matters more than power," the Empress continued. "Elaborate on this philosophy." Marcus glanced at Lyra. She gave him a tiny, encouraging nod. "Power is temporary," Marcus said carefully. "Truth is permanent. Power can force compliance, but truth creates understanding. In the long run, understanding lasts longer than force." "Idealistic," the Empress observed. "Maybe. But Earth's history taught us what happens when power ignores truth. Civilizations collapse. Empires fall. People suffer." "And you think the Athari Empire could collapse?" "I think every empire that believes it can't collapse has already started the process." The Empress smiled. Actually smiled. "There. That's why I wanted to speak with you. That willingness to say uncomfortable things without malice? To present challenging ideas without aggression?" Marcus waited. There was more coming. "I need someone to teach my daughter how to rule," the Empress said. "Not the ceremonial aspects. Not the protocol. She has hundreds of instructors for that. I need someone to teach her how to think beyond power. I'm not qualified to." "You come from a species that's new enough to remember what it's like to be uncertain. You're young enough to still question authority. You're brave enough, or foolish enough, to speak truth to power when it matters." "What exactly are you asking?" "Physical conditioning remains primary but adds strategic thinking, problem-solving under pressure, ethical decision-making. Teach her to lead by example rather than decree." Marcus looked at Lyra. She was watching her mother with an expression that mixed hope and terror. "What does Lyra think about this?" Marcus asked. The Empress blinked. "I'm offering you tremendous honor, and you want to know the child's opinion?" "She's the one who'll be doing the learning. Seems like her opinion matters." Mother and daughter exchanged a look that carried entire conversations. Finally, Lyra spoke. "I want to learn," she said quietly. "Not just to rule. To lead well. To make choices that help people instead of just maintaining power. But I need to be allowed to fail. If I teach something wrong or make mistakes, I need to know I won't cause political catastrophe." "Acceptable," the Empress said. "You'll have full immunity for tutorial content. What you teach, how you teach it, that's between you and Lyra. I only ask for the monthly reports to track progress." They negotiated details over a meal that Marcus barely tasted. Expanded schedule. Increased compensation. Official designation as Royal Educational Consultant. His diplomatic status upgraded to Protected Specialist. By the time he left the Royal Residential Wing, Marcus had somehow become responsible for shaping the future ruler of 7 star systems. No pressure. He made it back to his quarters before the panic attack hit. Drift found him sitting on the floor, breathing hard, trying to process the magnitude of what he'd just agreed to. "You're teaching the future Empress," Drift said. "I'm teaching a kid who happens to be the future Empress. Those are not the same thing. If I start thinking about the political implications, I'll freeze up and teach her nothing useful." Drift's colors cycled through thoughtful patterns. "So you're going to ignore that your student will eventually rule 7 star systems and just teach her?" "That's the plan. Humans," Drift said. "Absolutely insane." "Yeah, but it worked so far." "It shouldn't work. By any logical standard, what you're doing should cause political disaster. Yet somehow you've been promoted instead of executed. Maybe truth really does matter more than power. Or maybe you're just incredibly lucky. Little of both, probably. Marcus pulled himself together and started reviewing his lesson plans. If he was going to teach the future Empress how to think strategically, he needed to develop actual curriculum instead of winging it. His communicator chimed again. This time, a group message to the entire academy. Attention students, Royal Educational Consultant Marcus Chen is now designated as Protected Specialist under Diplomatic Immunity. Questions regarding his schedule or activities should be directed to the Empress's administrative office. Drift read it over his shoulder. Well, that makes everything official and impossible to back out of. Did you want to back out of? Marcus considered teaching Lyra had become the highlight of his week. Watching her grow more confident, more capable, more willing to question and learn, that mattered more than the political complications. No, he said finally, I don't want to back out. Then I guess we're doing this. We? You think I'm missing the chance to say I roomed with the person who shaped the next Empress? This is going in every history database. Marcus threw a pillow at him. Drift phrased through it, his form flickering with amused colors. They stayed up late planning impossible lessons for impossible students. Marcus fell asleep reviewing human leadership philosophy and wondering how any of it would translate to ruling 7-star systems. Tomorrow he'd teach Lyra to question authority while respecting necessary hierarchy. He'd help her understand the difference between power and leadership. He'd try to prepare her for responsibilities he couldn't fully comprehend. No pressure at all. Just another day as humanity's representative to the future of galactic civilization. He dreamed about falling, but this time he had students falling with him, all of them trusting that they'd land safely together. When he woke, he decided to take it as a good omen. The universe disagreed, but that revelation would come later. For now, Marcus had a future Empress to teach, and somehow that felt exactly right.